Kite whimpered and cried until his throat was raw, alone and nearly dead on that alien asteroid after his parents' ship crashed, until a human came and found him. The asteroid loomed before Captain Philip Rice's freighter as he prepared for final approach to the mining outpost on Gliese 876. 6. Rice sighed. Another routine supply run. After 2 decades hauling cargo across the frontier, it all blurred together. Suddenly, a faint distress signal pinged on the ship's sensors. It came from nearby, on the surface of the large asteroid his ship orbited. Rice leaned forward, frowning. No record of any settlements or bases on that rock. Against protocols, he decided to investigate. Someone could be in trouble down there. He landed the freighter in a cloud of regolith dust. Ahead, twisted wreckage of a small ship jutted from the asteroid's surface. Rice donned his helmet and stepped outside, metal crunching under his boots as he approached. He peered into the shattered cockpit and recoiled. 2 dead Vorta, an adult male and female, their purple skin cold and waxy. As he turned to leave, a faint cry reached his ears. He spun back. There, in the rear compartment, buried under debris, movement. Rice heaved away jagged chunks of hull plating to reveal a small fuzzy shape huddled inside. A Vorta puppy. It lifted its head and stared at him with terrified yellow eyes, whining pitifully, hind legs bent at an unnatural angle. The distress signal must have triggered automatically after the crash, with the puppy the only survivor. It wouldn't last much longer alone out here. Rice hesitated, then scooped up the tiny creature in his gloved hands. He had a choice to make, and the puppy's life hung in the balance. Rice cradled the wounded Vorta puppy against his chest as he hurried back to his ship. The little creature whimpered softly, its breaths coming in shallow gasps. Once inside the freighter, Rice sealed the airlock and removed his helmet. He grabbed his comm unit and hailed the mining outpost. "This is Captain Rice. I've got an emergency situation here. Found a crashed ship on the asteroid with a survivor, a Vorta puppy. It's in bad shape. Requesting immediate medical assistance." The response came back, tinged with annoyance. "Captain Rice, you know the regulations. We can't risk bringing an unknown alien life form into the outpost. It could be carrying all sorts of diseases. Let nature take its course and get back on schedule with your delivery." Rice gritted his teeth. "This puppy will die without treatment. I'm not just going to leave it." "Then it's your problem. We can't help you. Mining outpost Gliese 876 out." The comm went silent. Rice looked down at the shivering ball of purple fur in his arms. Big yellow eyes blinked up at him, glazed with pain. He couldn't abandon this helpless little creature to suffer and die alone. "Looks like it's just you and me, little one," Rice murmured. He carried the puppy to the cargo bay and cleared a space between the crates. His ship had a basic first aid kit for minor injuries, but nothing equipped to deal with a seriously wounded alien. Still, he had to try. Rice set the puppy down on a blanket and examined its injuries. The back legs were definitely broken. Ugly gashes marred the purple fur, oozing dark blood. Rice rummaged through the medkit, pulling out bandages, disinfectant and splints. As he worked to clean and dress the wounds, a strange sensation brushed against his mind. Feelings of fear, pain, and confusion that were not his own. Rice paused, looking at the puppy in amazement. "Are you trying to communicate with me, telepathically?" The foreign emotions intensified, tinged with desperation. Hazy images flickered in Rice's mind, impressions of the crash, the puppy's dead parents, his own face looming over. Rice stroked a hand gently over the puppy's fuzzy head. "It's okay, little guy, I've got you, you're safe now," Rice soothed. "I'm going to do everything I can to help you." He finished bandaging the wounds and carefully splinted the broken legs. The puppy was so small and frail under his hands, but it seemed to understand that Rice was trying to help. The fear and pain in the mental images faded slightly, replaced by a tentative sense of trust and comfort. Rice sat back on his heels looking at his handiwork. The puppy was still in rough shape, but at least now it had a fighting chance. He just hoped it would be enough. Taking care of an alien infant while trying to make his delivery runs was going to be a challenge, but he couldn't turn his back on this innocent life he'd saved. Rice scooped up the drowsy puppy, careful not to jostle its splintered legs. "Come on, let's get you settled somewhere more comfortable than the cargo hold floor, and I guess I should give you a name. How about—" "Geed," Rice decided. "It means hope in an old Earth language." Over the next few weeks, as the freighter traveled between frontier outposts, Rice devoted himself to nursing Kaid back to health. He changed the puppy's bandages, hand-fed him nutrient paste, and kept him warm and comfortable in a nest of blankets. Little by little, Kaid grew stronger. His wounds healed, bones knitting back together. Soon he was hobbling around the cargo bay on splintered legs, his fluffy tail wagging. Rice found himself spending every spare moment with the puppy, marveling at Kaid's resilience and zest for life. Despite the trauma he'd endured, Kaid was so eager to explore, learn, and play. Rice couldn't help but smile whenever Kaid sent him a burst of happy emotions. Joy at chasing a bull, contentment at being scratched behind the ears, excitement at discovering a new hiding spot among the crates. As their bond deepened, Kaid began sharing more complex thoughts and memories with Rice. Hazy images of Kaid's kittenhood on the Vorta homeworld, snippets of his parents' conversations, impressions of their ill-fated mission. Rice pieced together the story, bit by bit. Kaid's family had been part of a scouting expedition to survey the nearby asteroid belt for valuable resources. But they'd been ambushed by ships from a rival Vorta clan, attacked without provocation or warning. Kaid's parents had fled, desperate to escape with their child, but the enemy pursuers had damaged their vessel beyond repair. They'd crashed on this barren rock, leaving Kaid as the sole survivor. The revelation left Rice deeply troubled. He'd assumed that he could return Kaid to the Vorta authorities once the puppy had recovered, but now he realized that might not be the best course of action. If Kaid's family had been targeted by political rivals, the puppy could still be in danger from those same factions. There was no guarantee he'd be safe, even among his own kind. Rice mulled it over as he went about his daily routines, Kaid drowsing in a sling across his chest. When the puppy blinked up at him with those trusting yellow eyes, Rice knew he couldn't gamble with Kaid's future. Perhaps it was selfish, but he'd grown to love the little furball fiercely. Kaid was his responsibility now. "Kaid, it's going to be you and me from here on out, buddy," Rice said softly, scratching Kaid behind the ears. "Our little family of two." Kaid thrummed happily, sending Rice a flood of warmth and affection. Rice made his decision. He would keep Kaid's existence hidden, raising the puppy aboard his ship. It wouldn't be easy keeping such a secret while also caring for an alien infant, but he would make it work, whatever it took. And so as the freighter traversed the star-scattered void between worlds, man and puppy settled into their new life together. Rice taught Kaid about human culture and technology, the wonders of the galaxy beyond. In turn, Kaid shared the history and traditions of the Vorta, opening Rice's eyes to a rich alien heritage. They learned from each other, two lost souls forging an unbreakable bond against the backdrop of cold space. As Kaid grew, mastering the use of his telepathy, and even learning to speak a few words of English, Rice knew he'd made the right choice. This was where Kaid belonged, not cast back into the cutthroat politics of his species, but here, safe and loved. Together they would roam the stars, a most unlikely duo, captain and cosmic puppy explorers of the unknown frontier, and though the path ahead was uncertain, Rice knew one thing for sure. He would do whatever it took to protect his small purple friend, no matter the cost. Years passed as the unlikely duo traversed the star-speckled void. Rice watched with pride as Kaid grew from a tiny, vulnerable ball of fluff into a strong, intelligent companion. The puppy's wounds healed without a trace, his splintered legs straightening and growing sinewy with muscle. Under Rice's patient tutelage, Kaid learned to assist with daily tasks aboard the freighter. Rice showed him how to use his small, dexterous paws to reach into tight spaces and make delicate repairs in the ship's wiring. He taught Kaid to read the flickering screens of the control panels, monitoring the engines and life support. "Attaboy," Rice praised, ruffling Keed's ears, as the puppy correctly adjusted the oxygen levels in the cargo bay. "You're getting the hang of this faster than most humans would." Keed's tail wagged at the compliment, his chest puffing with pride. Through their telepathic link, he sent Rice a burst of gratitude and willpower, along with an image of them working side by side to keep the ship running smoothly. Rice grinned. Keed was more than just a pet or a helpmate. He was Rice's partner in this grand adventure, a friend who made the cold depths of space feel a little less lonely. Rice couldn't imagine his life without Keed's bright presence by his side. But their idyllic existence was not to last. One cycle, as the freighter cruised between systems, the proximity alarm blared a sudden warning. Rice frowned at the scanner readout. A massive ship had just dropped out of hyperspace, right on top of their position. Its energy signature was like nothing he'd seen before. Keed whined uneasily, picking up on Rice's spike of concern. His yellow eyes widened as an image of the strange vessel popped into their shared mental space. It was a Vorta warship, dripping with weapons. Before Rice could react, the comm crackled to life. A harsh voice burst from the speakers, speaking in accented galactic standard. "Human freighter, this is Commander Zahn of the Vorta Dominion. We know you have one of our kind aboard, a puppy that is the property of the Kydon clan. Surrender him to us immediately, or face the consequences." Rice's blood ran cold. How had they found out about Kyd? He'd been so careful to keep the puppy hidden all these years, and there was no way in hell he was handing Kyd over to these brutes. He reached out to Kyd through their bond, projecting reassurance and protectiveness. "Don't worry, buddy, I won't let them take you. You're not property, you're your own person. Puppy. We'll get through this together." Kyd pressed against Rice's leg, trembling but resolute. He sent back a surge of trust and loyalty. Rice took a deep breath and activated the comm. "Vorta vessel, this is Captain Rice. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just me aboard this ship. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a delivery to make." "Do not play games with us, human," Commander Zahn snarled. "Our scans confirm the presence of a juvenile Vorta life form on your freighter. He was kidnapped by traitorous dissidents, enemies of the Kydon. We are here to reclaim him. If you do not comply, we will board your ship by force and take him." Keed whimpered, shrinking back in fear. Rice saw flashes of memory in his mind. Keed's parents arguing in hushed tones about the rising tensions between Vorta factions. Dire warnings of power grabs and assassinations, of clans turning on each other in ruthless bids for dominance. With a sick sense of certainty, Rice realized the truth. Kyd's family hadn't been attacked by political rivals. They had been the rivals, the dissidents fleeing persecution by the Kydon. And now the Kydon had tracked Kyd down, desperate to snuff out the last remnant of their opposition. Rice's face hardened. Like hell was he going to let that happen. He'd made a promise to protect Keed, and he intended to keep it. "Go suck vacuum, you purple bastards," Rice spat into the comm. "Kyd is under my protection. If you want him, you'll have to come through me first." He slammed the comm button, cutting off Zahn's spluttered outrage. Alarms shrieked as the Vorta ship locked weapons on the small freighter. Rice lunged for the controls, wrenching the ship into a sharp dive. A plasma blast sizzled past the viewport, barely missing them. "Keed, I need you at the repair station," Rice barked, hands flying over the console as he frantically wove and dodged. "Route power to the shields and keep an eye on the core containment. This is going to get bumpy." Kyd barked an affirmative and scampered to his post, stubby tail lashing in agitation. The deck shuddered under Rice's boots as more plasma bursts streaked by, the freighter straining to evade the Vorta ship's superior firepower. Rice gritted his teeth, mind racing. They couldn't outrun the Vorta warship, and they sure as hell couldn't outgun it, but maybe, just maybe, they could outsmart it. "I've got an idea, buddy," Rice called over the din of straining metal and blaring alarms, "but you're gonna have to trust me on this one." Keed met his gaze, yellow eyes shining with complete faith. "Always," came the telepathic reply, threaded with unwavering loyalty. Rice nodded grimly, and keyed in a new set of coordinates, aiming the freighter toward a dense field of asteroids. If they could lose their pursuers among the chaotic maze of space rocks, they might just have a chance. It was a desperate gamble. The asteroids would be just as dangerous to the small freighter as to the Vorta ship. One wrong move, one moment of inattention, and they'd be smashed to bits. But it was the only option Rice could see, the only chance to keep Cade out of the Kydon's cruel clutches. "Hang on to your tail, fuzzball," Rice warned as the swarm of jagged asteroids loomed ahead. "Things are about to get a whole lot rockier." The freighter rocketed into the churning sea of asteroids, Vorta plasma blasts sizzling past the hull. Rice wrenched the controls, threading the ship through the narrowing gaps between tumbling boulders. Sweat beaded his brow as he strained to keep them one step ahead of destruction. Cade clung to the console, eyes wide and ears flattened back. His claws dug into the padding of his modified booster seat as the ship bucked and jolted. But there was no fear in the puppy's gaze, only fierce drive. He trusted Rice with every fiber of his being. "I'm picking up movement on the starboard side," Cade yipped, his telepathic voice edged with urgency. An image blossomed in Rice's mind, relayed from Cade's senses, the hulking shape of the Vorta warship, trying to flank them amid the asteroid swarms. "Oh, no, you don't," Rice growled. He slammed the throttle forward, corkscrewing the freighter into a gut-wrenching spiral. The Vorta guns spat fire, but Rice deftly wove between the blasts, dancing the ship through the deadly gauntlet. Proximity alarms shrieked as a massive asteroid tumbled into their path, looming like a mountain. Rice's hands flew over the controls, his old Navy training taking over. He jinked and juked, heart in his throat, as the freighter scraped past the asteroid with mere meters to spare. The Vorta ship wasn't so lucky. It clipped the spinning rock, the impact sending it careening off course. "Ha!" Rice crowed. "Let's see how they like a taste of their own medicine." Cade barked in approval, his tail wagging. Through their bond, Rice could feel the puppy's adrenaline-charged exhilaration, a mirror of his own. But the Vorta recovered quickly, dogging their heels with relentless purpose. Rice and Cade worked in tandem, human hands on the controls, and Vorta senses guiding the way. They ducked and dived, weaving a dizzying path through the chaotic asteroid field. "Incoming portside," Cade warned, projecting an image of another plasma barrage streaking their way. Rice hauled on the stick, pulling the freighter into a stomach-churning climb. G-forces slammed them back into their seats as the ship shot upward, the plasma blasts sizzling harmlessly beneath the keel. "Good boy," Rice praised, flashing Cade a quick grin. "We make a hell of a team, buddy." Cade sent back a surge of pride and affection, tinged with steely dedication. They were in this together, come what may. The deadly dance continued, the freighter staying just one hair's breadth ahead of the Vorta guns. But Rice knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, their luck would run out. He scanned the readouts, desperately searching for a way out. There, a small gap in the asteroid field leading to open space. If they could just reach it. "Cade, I need everything you've got," Rice said urgently. "Help me plot a course through that opening. It's our only chance." The puppy closed his eyes, brow furrowed in concentration. A glowing path appeared in Rice's mind, a tenuous trail of possibility winding through the tumbling rocks. Rice gripped the controls, heart made. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. He poured on the speed, aiming the freighter at the narrow passage. The Vorta ship bore down on them, weapons blazing. Rocks exploded all around them, filling the void with shrapnel and debris. Rice flew like a man possessed, threading the needle at breakneck pace. Alarms blared as the hull temperature spiked, the ship's shields straining under the onslaught. Rice ignored the screeching warnings, his entire being focused on that rapidly approaching gap. "Almost there," he gritted out. "Just a little further." With a burst of speed, the freighter shot through the opening, leaving the asteroid field behind. Rice let out a whoop of triumph, banging his hand on the console. But their elation was short-lived. The Vorta ship emerged from the asteroids, battered but still in pursuit. Rice could see the massive vessel filling the rear view screen, its guns glowing as they charged for another shot. "Cade, get ready to jump!" Rice barked, fingers flying over the nav computer. He punched in coordinates, desperately hoping the hasty calculations were enough to get them to safety. The freighter shuddered as a plasma blast clipped the shields, alarms shrieking in protest. Rice gritted his teeth, holding the ship steady with sheer force of will. Just a few more seconds. "Hyperdrive engaged," Cade yipped, slamming a paw down on the ignition. The stars blurred and stretched as the freighter leapt forward, the Vorta ship dwindling to a pinprick behind them. Rice sagged back in his chair, heart hammering in his chest. They'd made it. Against all odds, they'd escaped the Vorta's clutches, but Rice knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The Vorta would be back. They would never stop hunting Cade, never rest until they had the puppy in their grasp. This was only the beginning of a long and perilous road. Rice reached out, resting a hand on Cade's trembling flank. The puppy leaned into his touch, seeking comfort and reassurance. "It's going to be okay, buddy," Rice murmured. "I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but we'll get through this together. I promise to keep you safe, and I intend to keep that promise, no matter what." Cade met his gaze, yellow eyes shining with trust and love. He nuzzled into Rice's palm, sending a wordless pulse of gratitude and faith through their bond. Rice smiled, scratching Cade behind the ears. As long as they had each other, he knew they could face whatever the universe threw at them. The stars stretched to infinity before them, a vast expanse of danger and possibility, an endless frontier waiting to be explored. Rice squared his shoulders, facing the unknown with grim tenacity. The Vorta had picked the wrong human to mess with, the wrong pup to threaten. He would keep Cade safe, whatever it took, even if he had to fight the entire Vorta Dominion to do it. The chase was on. Rice leaned back in the pilot's chair, rubbing his eyes tiredly. The adrenaline of their narrow escape had faded, leaving only bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. He glanced over at Cade, curled up in the co-pilot's seat. The puppy's ears twitched restlessly as he dozed, paws kicking in his sleep. Rice sighed. They couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, the Vorta would catch up to them. They needed help, allies who could stand against the Dominion's might. An idea sparked in Rice's mind, a desperate gamble. He reached for the comm controls, hesitating only a moment before punching in a familiar frequency. The screen flickered to life, revealing a weathered human face etched with concern. "Mikhail," Rice greeted, mustering a weary smile for his old friend. "It's been a while." Admiral Mikhail Petrov, hero of the Earth Defense Fleet, leaned forward. "Philip, what's going on? You look like hell, my friend." Rice barked a humorless laugh. "You could say that. I've got a situation here, Mikhail, one that could use your particular brand of problem-solving." He explained everything, finding Cade in the wreckage, the puppy's unique abilities, the Vorta's relentless pursuit. Mikhail listened intently, his expression growing more troubled with every word. "I know it's a lot to ask," Rice finished, his voice rough with fatigue, "but I don't know where else to turn. Cade, he's more than just a pet, Mikhail. He's my friend. I can't let the Dominion get their claws into him." Mikhail was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant. Then he nodded, teeth clenched. "Bring the pup to Earth, Philip. I'll do what I can to help. It won't be easy, but I might have an idea." Relief crashed over Rice like a wave. "Thank you, Mikhail. I owe you one." The Admiral waved a dismissive hand. "Just get here in one piece, you hear? I'll make the arrangements on my end." The screen went dark, and Rice slumped back in his seat. He reached over, gently stroking Cade's fuzzy head. The puppy stirred, blinking up at him with sleepy yellow eyes. "Looks like we're going on a little trip, buddy," Rice murmured. "Time to visit Earth. Let's just hope Mikhail's plan, whatever it is, works." Cade yawned, nuzzling into Rice's palm. "Trust," he sent, the thought warm and sure, friend, help, safe. Rice smiled, feeling a flicker of hope amid the weariness. "Yeah, safe, that's the idea, anyway." He turned back to the controls, laying in a course for Earth. The blue-green jewel of humanity's homeworld glowed on the nav screen, a promise of sanctuary amid the stars. It was a long shot, Rice knew. The Vorta's reach was vast, their power formidable. Even Earth's defenses might not be enough to keep Kaid out of their grasp. But he had to try. For Kaid's sake, he would face whatever dangers lay ahead. The freighter surged forward, earthbound and resolute. Behind them, the stars streaked by in silver lines, a reminder of the vast and treacherous universe they navigated. The journey had only just begun. As the blue-green sphere of Earth swelled in the view screen, Rice felt a flicker of trepidation. It had been years since he'd set foot on his homeworld, and the circumstances of his return were far from ideal. Beside him, Kaid sat up straighter in his modified co-pilot's chair, yellow eyes wide as he took in the sight of humanity's cradle. "Home?" Kaid asked telepathically, his mental voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of apprehension. Rice reached over, giving the puppy a reassuring pat. "For me, buddy, but don't worry, we won't be staying long. Just need to meet with my friend Mikhail and get this sorted out." He guided the freighter down through the atmosphere, the hull shuddering as it plunged through the layers of clouds. Kaid whined softly, pressing closer to Rice's side. Rice sent a pulse of comfort through their bond, trying to soothe the puppy's nerves. "It's all right, Kaid, I've done this 1,000 times. The ship broke through the cloud cover, and the sprawling mega-city of New Moscow stretched out before them, a glittering expanse of towering skyscrapers and bustling sky lanes. Rice angled the freighter towards the gleaming spires of EDF headquarters, his hands steady on the controls. As they touched down on the landing pad, a familiar figure strode out to meet them, flanked by a pair of armed guards. Admiral Mikhail Petrov, his uniform crisp and his bearing military straight. Rice felt a surge of relief at the sight of his old friend. He popped the hatch and climbed out, Kaid cradled securely in his arms. The puppy blinked in the bright sunlight, his ears twitching at the cacophony of new sights and sounds. "Philip," Mikhail greeted, clasping Rice's shoulder. His gaze fell on Kaid and his eyebrows rose. "And this must be your little friend." Kaid met Mikhail's eyes, and Rice felt the now familiar brush of the puppy's telepathy against his mind. Mikhail stiffened, his hand dropping to his sidearm on reflex. "It's okay," Rice assured him quickly. "He won't hurt you, that's just how he communicates." Mikhail relaxed fractionally, looking at Kaid with new interest. "Fascinating, I've never encountered a telepath before, let alone one so young." Rice shifted Kaid in his arms, feeling the puppy's tension. "Can we take this inside? I don't like being out in the open." Mikhail nodded, gesturing for them to follow. "Of course, we have much to discuss." As they made their way into the gleaming EDF compound, Rice couldn't shake the feeling of unease prickling along his spine. Earth was supposed to be a safe haven, but he knew all too well how quickly that could change. They had to tread carefully. One wrong move and the Vorta's wrath could come crashing down on them all. In Mikhail's office, Rice settled into a chair, Kaid nestled in his lap. The puppy was tense, his yellow eyes darting around the room as he pressed close to Rice's chest. Rice stroked Kaid's fuzzy head, trying to project reassurance through their bond. Mikhail leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk. "All right, Philip, tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Rice took a deep breath and began to recount their harrowing journey. The distress signal on the asteroid, finding Kaid amid the wreckage, the Vorta's relentless pursuit. Mikhail listened intently, his expression growing more troubled with every word. "I didn't know where else to turn," Rice finished, his voice rough with exhaustion. "The Vorta, they won't stop. They'll keep coming for Kaid no matter where we go. I can't protect him on my own." Mikhail drummed his fingers on the desk, his brow furrowed in thought. "The Vorta are not to be underestimated," he agreed. "Their technology is advanced, their reach vast. Even Earth's defenses might not be enough to deter them." Rice's heart sank. If even Mikhail, with all the resources of the EDF at his disposal, couldn't help them. But the Admiral wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair, a gleam of calculation in his eyes. "However, there may be another way. A way to purpose this without bloodshed. Rice frowned. What do you mean? The Vorta faction that pursued you. They are not the only players on the galactic stage, Mikhail explained. From what you've told me, it seems that Cade's family belonged to a different faction, one that opposed the Kedon's agenda. Cade stirred in Rice's lap, his ears perking up. An image bloomed in Rice's mind, relayed from the puppy's memories, a sleek Vorta ship, its hull emblazoned with an unfamiliar crest. Mikhail nodded, as if he could see the image himself. Yes, exactly, the Vorazin clan. They were once a powerful force among the Vorta, known for their progressive ideals and their willingness to engage with other species. Rice's mind raced, putting the pieces together. You think the Vorazin might be willing to help us, to stand up to the Kedon? It's a possibility, Mikhail allowed. The Vorazin have been in decline in recent years, their influence waning as the Kedon's has grown. But they still command respect among certain circles. If we could arrange a meeting, present evidence of the Kedon's aggression— He trailed off, his expression turning speculative. And then there's Cade himself, a telepath raised among humans with a foot in both worlds. He could be a powerful symbol, a bridge between our species. Rice's arms tightened around Cade, sudden fear spiking through him. I won't let him be used as a pawn in some political game, he said sharply. He's just a kid. He deserves to live his life in peace, not be dragged into the middle of a Vorta power struggle. Mikhail held up a placating hand. Peace, my friend. I would never suggest putting the boy at risk, but if Cade is willing, if he chooses to speak on his own behalf, it could make all the difference. A plea for understanding, from the heart of one who has known both kindness and cruelty, at the hands of Vorta and humans alike. Rice looked down at Cade, conflicted. The puppy gazed back at him, yellow eyes solemn and wise beyond his years. Want to help, Cade sent, his mental voice ringing with drive. Want to try for Rice, for Rud family. Rice swallowed hard around the sudden lump in his throat. You're sure about this, buddy? It could be dangerous. I can't ask you to put yourself at risk. Cade nuzzled into Rice's palm, his thoughts warm and sure. Rice protect, Cade protect Rice, pack stays together. A fierce surge of love and pride welled up in Rice's chest. This little pup, this brave and loyal friend, was willing to face down the demons of his past for a chance at a better future. For both of them. How could Rice do any less? He turned to Mikhail, his face hardening with perseverance. All right, let's do it. Set up the meeting with the Vorazin. We'll take our case to them, and to anyone else who'll listen. The Admiral nodded, a glint of approval in his eyes. I'll make the arrangements. In the meantime, you and Cade will stay here under EDF protection. We'll keep you safe until the delegations arrive. Rice let out a shaky breath, feeling the weight of the road ahead settling on his shoulders. It wouldn't be easy facing down the Vorta elite, bearing their story to the galaxy. But he wouldn't be doing it alone. He had Cade by his side and the strength of their bond to see them through. Together, they would weather whatever storms lay ahead, for the sake of the future and for each other. Rice and Cade stood before the Vorta delegation, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Zoran, an imposing figure with piercing violet eyes, regarded them with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. His gaze lingered on Cade, taking in the puppy's unusual coloration and the way he clung to Rice's side. You claim that this puppy is the sole survivor of a scouting mission attacked by a rival faction, Zoran said, his voice cool and measured, and that this same faction now seeks to capture him for their own purposes. But what proof do you have of these allegations? Rice squared his shoulders, meeting Zoran's gaze unflinchingly. Cade's memories are all the proof we need. He witnessed the attack firsthand, saw his own parents murdered by Kresh's forces, and since then, Kresh's ship has pursued us relentlessly across the galaxy, stopping at nothing to get their hands on Cade. Zoran's eyes narrowed. The word of a human and a puppy is hardly compelling evidence. Hyde stepped forward, his small body trembling but his yellow eyes shining with willpower. He reached out with his mind, projecting a series of images and emotions into the minds of the Vorta delegates. They saw flashes of the scouting mission, felt the terror and confusion as Kresh's ship attacked without warning. They witnessed the brutal deaths of Kaid's parents, experienced the heartbreak and desperation as the puppy huddled alone in the wreckage. And they felt the unbreakable bond between Kaid and Rice, the love and loyalty that had sustained them through their harrowing journey. Zoran reeled back, his face pale and his eyes wide. "By the gods," he whispered, "the puppy speaks the truth." The other delegates murmured among themselves, their expressions ranging from shock to outrage. Zoran held up a hand, silencing them. "This is a grave matter," he said, his voice heavy with urgency. "If Kresh is willing to attack our own people and destabilize our society for his own gain, then he must be stopped. We cannot allow such treachery to go unchallenged." He turned to Rice and Kaid, his expression softening. "I apologize for my earlier skepticism. It is clear that you have risked much to bring this information to us. We are in your debt." Rice let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "We only want to ensure Kaid's safety and bring those responsible for his suffering to justice." Zoran nodded. "And we shall. I will personally lead an investigation into Kresh's activities. We will gather evidence of his crimes and present it before the Vorta High Council. With your testimony and Kaid's memories, we can expose his treachery and put an end to his schemes once and for all." Admiral Petrov stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "The Earth Defense Fleet stands ready to assist in any way we can. Kresh's actions threaten not only the Vorta, but the stability of the entire galaxy. We cannot allow him to succeed." Zoran clasped Petrov's hand, a gesture of solidarity between their two species. "Your support is most welcome, Admiral. Together we will bring Kresh to justice and ensure a lasting peace for both our peoples." As the meeting adjourned, Rice scooped Kaid up into his arms, hugging the puppy close. "You did it, buddy," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "You convinced them. I'm so proud of you." Kaid nuzzled into Rice's chest, his thoughts warm and content. "We did it together. Pack stays strong." Rice smiled, feeling a surge of hope for the first time in months. With the Vorta and the Earth forces united against Kresh, they finally had a chance to put an end to this nightmare. But even as they celebrated this small victory, Rice knew that the real battle was still to come. Kresh would not go down without a fight, and they would need all their strength and cunning to defeat him. The road ahead was long and perilous, but with Kaid by his side, Rice felt ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. Together, they would see this through to the end, no matter the consequences. Rice leaned over the holographic display, his eyes narrowed in concentration as he studied the map of the remote planet. Zoran stood beside him, pointing out key features of the terrain. "This valley here would be the perfect place to stage the ambush," the Vorta ambassador said. "It's surrounded by high cliffs on 3 sides, with only one narrow entrance. If we can lure Kresh's forces inside, we'll have them trapped." Petrov nodded, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "We can set up sniper positions on the cliffs and have our main force waiting in the valley to engage them head-on." Kaid sat on the edge of the table, his yellow eyes bright with excitement. "I can help guide our troops," he said, his telepathic voice ringing in their minds. "I'll be able to sense where Kresh's soldiers are and warn our people of any surprises." Rice reached out and ruffled the fur between Kaid's ears. "That's my boy," he said proudly. "With your help, we'll have the advantage." They spent the next few hours refining the plan, going over every detail until they were satisfied. Then Zoran set the bait. He leaked information through his network of spies and informants, hinting at the existence of a powerful ancient artifact hidden on the planet. The rumors spread like wildfire through the underworld of the galaxy, eventually reaching Kresh's ears. Just as they had predicted, the warlord couldn't resist the temptation. He gathered his forces and set out for the planet, determined to claim the artifact for himself. Rice and his team were ready for them. They arrived on the planet a day ahead of Kresh, giving them time to set up their positions and prepare for the coming battle. Rice and Keed took their place at the head of the main force, a team of elite Earth Defense Fleet Special Forces soldiers armed to the teeth. As they waited in the valley, Rice could feel the tension crackling in the air. He glanced down at Keed, who was crouched beside him, his small body coiled like a spring. "You ready for this, buddy?" Rice asked quietly. Keed looked up at him, his yellow eyes blazing with commitment. "Ready," he said firmly. "We'll stop Kresh together." Rice nodded, his chest swelling with pride and affection for his brave little friend. A moment later, Keed stiffened, his ears swiveling forward. "They're coming," he said urgently. "I can sense them. They'll be here in a few minutes." Rice relayed the warning to the rest of the team, and they readied their weapons. The valley was eerily silent, the only sound the soft crunching of boots on gravel as the soldiers shifted into position. Then the first of Kresh's soldiers appeared at the mouth of the valley. They marched in formation, their weapons held at the ready, their faces grim and determined. Rice raised his hand, signaling to his team to hold their fire. They needed to wait until Kresh's forces were fully committed, trapped in the valley with no way out. More and more of Kresh's soldiers poured into the valley until it seemed like the entire army was inside. Rice could see Kresh himself at the back, his armor glinting in the sunlight, his face twisted into a sneer of triumph. "Now!" Rice yelled, dropping his hand. All hell broke loose. The Earth Defense Fleet snipers opened fire from the cliffs, their shots echoing off the rocky walls. Kresh's soldiers fell by the dozens, cut down before they even knew what was happening. At the same time, Rice and his team charged forward, their weapons blazing. They crashed into the front ranks of Kresh's army like a tidal wave, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Keed darted through the chaos, his small size and agility making him almost impossible to hit. He used his telepathy to guide the Earth Defense Fleet soldiers, warning them of incoming attacks and directing them to weak points in the enemy's defenses. Rice fought like a man possessed, his rifle spitting fire as he mowed down Kresh's soldiers left and right. He could hear Keed's voice in his mind, urging him on, guiding his shots with uncanny precision. Together they carved a path of destruction through the heart of Kresh's army, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. The warlord's soldiers fought back desperately, but they were outmatched and outmaneuvered at every turn. Finally, they reached Kresh himself. The warlord stood his ground, his eyes blazing with hatred and fury as he leveled his weapon at Rice. "You think you've won, human?" he snarled. "You think you can defeat me? I am Kresh, the scourge of the galaxy. I will crush you like an insect." Rice just smiled grimly, raising his own weapon. "You talk too much," he said coldly. They opened fire at the same moment, their shots colliding in mid-air with a blinding flash of light. Rice felt the searing heat of the energy beams as they passed inches from his face, but he didn't flinch. He kept firing, pouring all his rage and dedication into every shot. Beside him, Keed did the same, his small body glowing with a fierce yellow light as he poured his own psychic energy into the attack. Under the combined onslaught of human and Vorta, Kresh's defenses crumbled. His armor shattered, his weapon exploded in his hands, and he fell to his knees, blood pouring from a dozen wounds. Rice stepped forward, his rifle aimed squarely at the warlord's head. "It's over, Kresh," he said coldly. "Surrender, and you might just live to stand trial for your crimes." But Kresh just laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed off the valley walls. "Surrender to you? Never," he spat. "I would rather die than bow to a human and his pet freak." Keed growled, his hackles rising. "I am not a freak," he said, his telepathic voice ringing with anger. "I am Keed, of the Vorta, and you will pay for what you have done to my people." Kresh's eyes widened in sudden fear as Keed stepped forward, his small body blazing with psychic energy. The warlord tried to scramble backwards, but it was too late. Keid unleashed a blast of pure mental force, a wave of psychic energy that slammed into Kresh like a physical blow. The warlord screamed in agony, his body convulsing as Keed's power tore through his mind smoothly. When it was over, Kresh lay still on the ground, his eyes staring sightlessly at the sky. Keed sagged, his energy spent, and Rice caught him before he could fall. Around them the battle was winding down. The last of Kresh's soldiers had either surrendered or fled, and the Earth Defense Fleet forces were mopping up the stragglers. Rice hugged Keed close, feeling the puppy's small body trembling with exhaustion and emotion. "You did it, buddy," he whispered. "You saved us all." Keed nuzzled into Rice's chest, his thoughts a jumble of relief and joy and love. "We did it together," he said softly. "Pack stays strong." Rice smiled, his eyes stinging with sudden tears. "Damn right," he said hoarsely. "Damn right." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other amidst the carnage and destruction of the battlefield. The war was over. Kresh was defeated. In the heart of the battle, Rice fought his way through the chaos, his rifle blazing as he cut down Kresh's soldiers left and right. The air was thick with the stench of blood and smoke, the ground littered with the bodies of the fallen. But Rice barely noticed, his focus locked on one thing and one thing only: reaching Kresh. He found the warlord at the center of the fray, barking orders to his troops as he fired his own weapon with deadly precision. Rice charged forward, dodging and weaving through the hail of energy bolts until he was face to face with his nemesis. "It's over, Kresh," Rice shouted over the din of battle. "Surrender now and you might just live to see trial." Kresh sneered, his eyes burning with hatred. "Surrender to you?" He let out a harsh bark of laughter. "I think not, human. I hold the power here, not you." He raised his wrist, revealing a small communicator. "My ships are in orbit, their weapons locked on your pitiful Earth fleet. One word from me, and they'll blow your friends out of the sky." Rice felt a chill run down his spine, but he refused to let it show on his face. "You're bluffing," he said, his voice steady. "You wouldn't dare risk destroying the artifact you came here for." Kresh's smile was cold and cruel. "Wouldn't I? The artifact means nothing to me compared to the satisfaction of seeing you and your pet freak suffer." He raised the communicator to his lips, his finger hovering over the button. "Surrender the puppy or watch your fleet burn." Rice's grip tightened on his rifle, his mind racing. He couldn't give up Kaid, not after everything they'd been through together. But he couldn't let the Earth fleet be destroyed either. He opened his mouth, desperate to find some way to stall, to buy time. But before he could speak, a small blur of purple fur streaked past him, heading straight for Kresh. It was Kaid, moving faster than Rice had ever seen him move before. The puppy lapped at the warlord, his small body glowing with a brilliant yellow light. Kresh barely had time to react before Kaid slammed into him, a wave of psychic energy exploding outward from the point of impact. The warlord staggered back, his eyes going wide with shock and pain. The communicator fell from his hand, clattering to the ground. All around them, Kresh's soldiers cried out in agony, clutching their heads as Kaid's telepathic blast tore through their minds. They dropped their weapons, falling to their knees in submission. Rice surged forward, his rifle raised. He reached Kresh just as the warlord was struggling to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "Surrender, Kresh," Rice demanded, his voice cold as ice. "It's over." For a moment, Kresh looked like he might fight back. His hand twitched toward his fallen weapon, but then he saw the Earth Defense Fleet soldiers closing in around him, their weapons trained on his heart. Slowly, reluctantly, he raised his hands in defeat. Rice let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He lowered his rifle, his shoulders sagging with relief. It was over. They had won. He turned to Keed, who was sitting on the ground nearby, looking dazed but unhurt. Rice scooped the puppy up in his arms, hugging him close. "Oh, you did it, buddy," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "You saved us all." Keid nuzzled into Rice's chest, his thoughts a warm flutter of love and relief. "Couldn't let him hurt you," he sent softly. "Couldn't let him hurt our friends." Rice just held him tighter, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. Around them, the Earth Defense Fleet soldiers were rounding up the last of Kresh's troops, securing the area. Ambassador Zoran strode forward, his face grim but triumphant. Kresh will answer for his crimes, the Vorta said firmly. I will see to it personally. He turned to Rice and Cade, his expression softening. I owe you both a great debt. You have saved not only your own people, but mine as well. The Vorta will not forget this. Rice nodded, too exhausted and emotionally drained to find the right words. He just held Cade close, savoring the feeling of the puppy's warm weight in his arms. They had fought hard for this victory, he and Cade. They had been through hell and back, facing down dangers that would have broken lesser beings. But they had endured, they had triumphed. And now, at long last, they could rest. The war was over. The future was theirs. Together. As the dust settled on the battlefield, Rice stood amidst the rubble and debris, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. They had won. Kresh was defeated. But at what cost? He looked down at Cade, cradled in his arms. The once vibrant and energetic puppy now lay limp and unresponsive, his yellow eyes dull and unfocused. Cade, buddy? Rice's voice cracked as he gently stroked the soft purple fur. Come on, talk to me. But there was no response, no familiar brush of Cade's thoughts against his own. The puppy's mind was silent, withdrawn. Rice felt a cold knot of fear tighten in his gut. Whatever Cade had done to stop Kresh, it had taken a terrible toll. Around them, the Earth Defense Fleet soldiers and the Vorta troops were celebrating their victory, their voices rising in cheers and shouts of triumph. But Rice couldn't join in their joy. All he could think about was Cade. Ambassador Zoran approached, his face etched with concern. Is he... The Vorta's voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Rice shook his head. He's alive, but something's wrong. He's not responding, not even telepathically. Zoran knelt down, examining Cade with gentle hands. The psychic feedback from his attack on Kresh must have overloaded his neural pathways. His mind is in shock, trying to protect itself. Rice felt a surge of panic. Can you help him? Is there anything your people can do? Zoran hesitated, then nodded slowly. We have scientists who specialize in Vorta neurology and telepathic abilities. They may be able to help Cade recover, given time and proper treatment. Rice looked down at Cade, his heart breaking at the thought of letting him go, but he knew he had to put Cade's needs first. Do it, he said hoarsely. Take him back to your homeworld. Do whatever you have to. Just help him. Zoran placed a comforting hand on Rice's shoulder. I give you my word, Captain. We will do everything in our power to heal Cade's mind. He will be cared for as one of our own. Rice nodded, blinking back the sting of tears. He hugged Cade close one last time, breathing in the scent of his soft fur. You hear that, buddy? He whispered. You're going to be okay. The Vorta are going to take care of you, help you get better. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to loosen his grip. I'll miss you, Cade, more than you can know, but this is what's best for you. You need to go with Zoran. Let his people help you heal. Gently, Rice transferred Cade's limp form into Zoran's waiting arms. The ambassador cradled the puppy with infinite care, his eyes soft with understanding. He will never forget you, Captain Rice, Zoran said quietly. The bond you share is beyond mere friendship. It is a connection of the soul, unbreakable and eternal. Rice nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He watched as Zoran carried Cade towards the waiting Vorta ship, the puppy's purple fur a splash of color against the dull grey metal. Each step felt like a piece of Rice's heart being torn away, but he forced himself to stay still, to let Cade go. This was the right thing to do, the only thing he could do. As the ship's hatch sealed shut, Rice finally let the tears fall. He wept for the friend he had lost, for the brave and loyal companion who had been through so much by his side. But even as he grieved, Rice felt a flicker of hope. Cade was strong, a survivor. He had endured so much, overcome impossible odds. He would heal from this too in time. And when he did, Rice would be waiting, ready to welcome his friend back with open arms, to continue their adventures among the stars. No matter how long it took, No matter the distance between them, their bond would endure. A connection forged in the crucible of adversity, tempered by love and sacrifice. A friendship that would last a lifetime and beyond. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.